Hey everyone, let's get this show on the road. So chapter 16, this was a huge chapter, and I actually had to take some notes. I'm going to be glancing over here periodically. I might edit some of that out. We'll see. So this chapter kicks off as Jessica has set up a dinner party with a motley crew of people from across various occupations, and that is why I dressed up today. Just kidding, we had a school function with the kids, so I just got back from that. So at this dinner party, Leto is pretty anxious. He is trying to put on an act that he's kind of cautious of Jessica, because he wants everyone to think that he suspects that she might actually be this traitor. She's a little bit annoyed with him because she's not exactly in on this ruse. So she's dressed up in her finest earth-toned clothing, which apparently is his favorite look for her, I guess. So anyway, and he of course notices that she's doing this, so he's in on it, on how she's thinking. She's kind of suspecting what's going on. Then we got this whole crew of dinner party people, each with their own agenda, and that's really what the core of this chapter is about, is all these different agendas and politics flying every which way, and people using strange little cues inside of their dialogue, and we'll get into that in a minute. Before we kick this chapter off, again, if you are watching this, you might like sci-fi fantasy. I wrote a book in that genre. More information in the description below. Please check it out. So before this dinner party kicks off, in terms of the most important part, food coming in, Leto notices that there are these rags that people, I think they're like washing their hands or their face or something. And of course, these rags have water in them, and what they're supposed to do with these is drop them on the floor, and then someone who's a maid, as I understand it, comes and takes those rags and then gives them to the people outside, the beggars outside. Well, Leto says, no way, we're not doing this anymore. Instead of giving the rags to the people outside, you're going to take that whole basin of water, and any beggar who comes and asks for a drink, you're going to give them a nice cup of water. Well, I was kind of expecting that the maid, who's part of the regular society here, she's not upper class, would be like, oh wow, this Duke's really cool and nice to do that. No, she's annoyed because apparently she was selling the rags to the beggars, actually taking some money. So Leto's breaking this scheme of hers, and at this point you're realizing that kind of no matter where you are in society here, things are a little rough and tumble, we will say. And this just makes Leto a little more blue. He's already pretty blue with everything going on, the danger he's in, his family's in, but just seeing how the society functions is a little bit of a bummer for him. Well, after things settle down and they have some banter about, hey Leto, what else are you going to change in terms of the customs that the Harkonnen set up, the food starts coming in and we get introduced to a variety of people. So the main people in this chapter that are worth noting, there's a water shipper, and the water shipper is hugely important from a political perspective because he controls the water movement on Arrakis, and water is basically gold on this planet. Along with the water shipper, there's a banker. Guy's real mouthy. He calls himself Susu as well, which is a funny name. And the reason he's called Susu is because he's an advisor to the Water Peddlers Union, and Susu is somehow tied to that. I'm just going to call him the banker. There's a smuggler at the table. We'll talk a little bit more about him in a little bit. And then Keynes is at the table, and Keynes is the master of change. He was the person who's tied, I don't think an original Fremen, but someone who's become a Fremen, and was the one who was riding in the chopper thing out when they met the worm, and then the carry-all didn't come and pick up the beetle mining thingy. Sorry, I forget what that thing's called. There's a lot to learn in this book, so forgive me when I don't get some of the names right. But anyway, that's the group that we have here. So this whole time, Leto's getting more and more grumpy. He's being really awkward. As the food's coming in, he's standing there making toasts. People are thinking he's drunk. Eventually, he settles down a little bit. The banter around the room continues. People are kind of sniffing each other out to see where the different alliances are, and some are trying to, I'm important, and that's essentially what's going on here. Eventually, Leto gets a notice that he needs to attend to something really important, and then he takes Paul and puts him at the head of the table and asks Paul to be host. So Leto heads out, and then immediately Paul starts having some fun with the guests, because Paul, we all know he's the super genius that he is, starts asking different questions of different people with hidden meaning, perhaps hidden insults, I think, such as for the water shipper, and As he insults the water shipper, the banker starts to get irritated, and Jessica's reading between the lines using her Bene Gesserit skills. She becomes pretty sure that the banker is actually a Harkonnen, or tied to the Harkonnens. So she's getting pretty nervous about this guy. The conversation begins to escalate, and there's a little aside in this chapter that talks about how Jessica was trained in espionage, and as part of this, there's a lot about hidden meaning in different words and phrases that people use. So then there's multiple paragraphs here where you're hearing what people are saying at face value, and then either Jessica or Paul, because he's also been trained in this skill to kind of read between the lines, we find out what the hidden meaning is. And it's actually pretty entertaining. This chapter was very unique in terms of a lot of things I read, in that there wasn't a lot of action, but there was a lot of tension, because everyone keeps just insulting each other with all this hidden meaning, and to the point where Jessica is getting really close to, she starts reaching for where she's hid the Kry's knife. Again, the Kry's knife is made, I think, from the tooth of a worm, but she has this hidden down by her ankle, and she's about to reach for it, and I think take it out and kill the banker. But then Keynes and the smuggler, who at this point we find out are very much on the Atreides side. They often laugh at some of the quips Paul's making and so forth. So it begins to lighten the mood to where Jessica doesn't feel like she's got to kill this banker. But he's pretty upset by the time we're getting close to the end of this dinner party. Eventually, someone comes in and hands Jessica a note, and Leto tells her in the note, and she shares with the whole group, "Hey, great news! We found out what happened with that carry-all." And the carry-all is the machine that comes and takes the mining beetle machine, and before the worm gets it and eats it, it picks it up and carries it away safely, and then you keep all the spice that it got, which is definitely what you want to try to do. Anyway, what happened, why this carry-all didn't come and pick up the beetle in the last chapter, was because there were a couple of Harkonnens crew people on the ship, and they took it over, and then they ended up taking over to one of the smugglers' hideouts, and they were trying to sell it. But then, again, I think because the smugglers in cahoots with the Atreides, they catch the Harkonnen people, and all is well. They got the carry-all back, and the dinner party kind of settles down. But the chapter ends with Jessica reading the hidden message that Leto put into this note to her, which was, hey, the Harkonnens were also smuggling las guns, and las guns are apparently these guns that you can shoot at anyone with a shield or anything with a shield, and creates almost a nuclear explosion. So these things are really, really messy. Most people wouldn't shoot at a shield with one of these things because you're going to die too, but the Harkonnens will. That's just the type of people they are. So everything's pretty tense in terms of, oh no, the Harkonnens are starting to move these super dangerous weapons around. We got at least the banker and the water shipper, who are very, very important on Arrakis. Not happy with the Atreides side, definitely more in line with the Harkonnens. We have the whole Fremen crew with Keynes and maybe the smuggler guy taking their alliance with the Atreides. So the factions are being made more clear, and the stakes are continuing to arise. But for this chapter, I definitely am feeling like the book is taking on a life of its own in my imagination, completely decoupled from the movie at this point. I'm finding myself less and less frequently comparing it to the movie, which is pretty cool. There's a lot more detail in here, and I'm having fun with it. This is continuing to get better. Definitely seeing why this book, at least, maybe not the series, but the book at least, is really popular. So as we're having more of these factions get clarified, I'm looking forward to seeing how they ultimately turn into what I have to expect is a pretty big uprising or battle, because the Duke, he's a goner. And I don't even have to know that from having seen the movie. Previous chapters have been hinting at it really hardcore. I also am wondering where Dr. Yua is in all this, because I know he's the ultimate traitor, so maybe he's going to pop in here pretty soon. Anyway, that was chapter 16. On to chapter 17. Until then, I hope you have a great day or night or whatever, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.